Hi, so this is just a real quick trigger warning. Today's episode, as interesting as it is, we do talk about dead bodies, and some of the details are a little gory. So we do recommend, if you have a squeamish stomach, maybe skim through this episode.
Yeah, we'll catch you in the next one for sure.
In that case, enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chaos Chronicles.
Navigating the randomness.
I'm Jess.
I'm Connie.
And this week we have a little mystery for you.
I'm excited because I don't know anything about it. But before we go into that, just a reminder, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and TikTok under @Chaos Chronicles with an S.
Podcast.
Chaos Chronicles Podcast.
Yep. Chaos Chronicles Podcast.
There we go.
Yep. So, the people listening already know what this is, but this is the, I do want to start, before I say what it is, I do want to start by saying I am going to butcher every single one of these names, even the name of what it is. They're Russian names. They're all Russian names.
Oh.
And so I'm going to butcher every single one of them. If you hear us laughing at the names, we're not making fun of the names, just making fun of me trying to pronounce these names, because it's going to be bad.
Good start.
But anywho, we're going to be talking about the Dyatlov Pass Incident.
I was wondering if that's what it was. I knew only that there was victims and there was a survivor, and that it was something about frozen, people being frozen.
Yep.
Like, that's all I knew.
Yeah, that's all I told her.
I don't know much about it, though, because it's been years since I listened to a podcast on it, but, like, I remember just little bits here and there. Mostly reaffirming my fear of I never want to go hiking in the winter, ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So this was back in January of 1959, January to February. So in January of 59, a trained and well-prepared hiking group led by Igor Dyatlov wanted to complete a skiing expedition across the Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union. Their goal was to reach the Orton Mountain. This was a very challenging route and was about 350 kilometers long.
And they decided the best time to do this was in January and February in the Soviet Union? Okay.
Uh-huh.
That's what we call a death wish.
Oh, so, so also it's about 217 miles, just so we have more perspective, because we're miles, not kilometers over in the U.S.
Because we're right.
Yeah, jeez.
America.
So Mount Orton, roughly translated, means don't go there.
Okay, I'm not...
So when you're saying death wish...
Yeah, I'm not here to victim blame.
But... you're kind of asking for it.
A bit. I mean, like, I'm sorry you died. I'm sorry they died. That being said, let's take some lessons away from the first minute and a half of this story, which is, if a place is called "Do Not Come Here," do not go there. That's...
Don't do it.
Yeah.
So the group was made up of 8 men and 2 women. So you have a total group of 10 at the beginning of it. Again, all of them were well prepared for the conditions. They all had what was called their Category 3 hiking certificate, which was the highest level at the time. So they knew what they were doing. They were very prepared.
This is not amateurs. Okay.
No. So the hikers had backgrounds like engineering, geology, radio engineering. Most of them went to the same university. They all shared passions for hiking and the outdoors, obviously.
Okay, so these are a bunch of smart people.
Yep.
With experience. And they still died? Note to self, I am not that well educated. I am not that smart. I'm never going hiking. At least not like that.
Mm-hmm.
To do not go there mountain.
So I have a list of the names and ages of all 10. Again, I am going to butcher all of these, and it's going to be really bad. But here we go. Igor Dyatlov, who was the leader of the expedition, he was 23.
That's so young.
most of these are a lot younger than I expected when I saw their ages.
Well, I feel like a dick for the jokes already. Sorry.
Yuri Doroshenko, age 21. Ludmila Debanina, age 20. Grigory Krinoshenko. Alexander Kolvatov. Zenita. Alexander was 24, if I didn't say. Gregory was 23, if I didn't say. I was focused on the names. Zenadia Kolomorgrava.
Zenadia?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Age 22. And then Rustem Solobodin, age 23. Semon also went by Alexander. Zolotarov, age 38. Nikolai, Thibaut Briginol, age 23, and Yuri Yudin, which is the easiest name to say, and he was 21.
So the oldest of this group was 23?
38.
Oh, 38. Sorry, which one was the 38?
Semon, the guy that also went by Alexander Zolotrov.
Sorry, I was just focused on the names and the consonants.
I know. All the other ones, he's like the outlier in age. All the other ones ranged from 20 to 24. But the most common age is 23. So most of them are 23.
I mean, that's still young.
That's really young. So Yuri Yudin was the only one to have survived the trip. So that last one in the list, age 21, he only survived because about 5 days into the journey, he decided to dip out when they were at the last small village that the whole group was seen at because he was having a sciatica flare-up.
21 with sciatica?
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
I mean, if he's an avid hiker, he might have a lot of injuries and who knows what, so.
That's true. No one goes hiking because it's safe, so.
No.
Well, that makes sense. But okay, so what we're tracking so far, because I'm sure there's several cuts by now due to interruptions by dogs.
Lots of interruptions by dogs.
Lots of interruptions. We've got this group of Russians.
Yep.
And of them, ranging between mainly like 20 to 24 with one 38-year-old,
yep.
and Yuri Yudin, the 21-year-old, he is the only known survivor of this group, and the only reason he's considered a survivor is because at the last village that they were seen at, he peeled off due to sciatica pain.
Correct.
But then the other 9 were never seen again until
they were seen again.
Sorry, I should say.
They were seen again, very much not alive and frozen.
Okay.
Yep. And while they were at this town, Yuri helped a lot with the investigation. So apparently in this town, Yuri, the survivor, overheard one of the locals warning Igor Dyatlov about something, but he doesn't know what the warning was of.
Okay.
But there was a warning.
And Igor was the leader of the group, right? The 23-year-old?
Yep. How do you remember all these ages associated with the names?
Girl, it is a crapshoot what is going to stick in my brain. No guarantee it's going to be there in 5 minutes.
So the group was having a lot of fun. They were documenting how much fun they were having. They were taking lots of pictures. They were journaling. And so on January 29th of 59, the group departed for, oh boy, cities are also not my
Soviet Union cities are hard.
Severodolofsky, which is now Yekaterinburg.
Yekaterinburg, that's from
the Anastasia.
Yeah.
So they departed for what is now Yekaterinburg. The early stages of the expedition went as planned. They were able to cover a great amount of distance and set up camp on the slopes of the Kholat Sakal mountain on February 1st. So again, that mountain translated, which is also, don't know if I mentioned this in the beginning, but it's the Mansi language, which is like the locals or the natives of the area. So Kholat means scarce or dead. And
optimistic thus far.
Sakal means lack of animal or lack of prey, indicating that it wasn't a good place to hunt. So it's like a dead, barren place.
Obviously a great place to be.
So
they go to Do Not Go There Mountain, they go to Dead Mountain. Wow, this is...
Yeah, it's, journey.
Yeah, what the hell, Yuri? You chose some bad locations. I'm sorry.
Well, Igor Dyatlov was the leader.
Igor, sorry. Apologies, Yuri. Resend.
So now on February 1st, where they set up camp, they were now only about 6 miles or 10 kilometers from their goal. So they were almost there. They never made it. Sorry, just had to throw that. They never made it. One thing that is kind of confusing, that confuses a lot of people, is that they set up the tent on the slope of the mountain. So not in the tree cover, on a slope. And, it's already cold enough, and it's even colder on the slopes because you get the wind that comes off the mountain. Igor was a very experienced, explorer. Why would he set their camp at the slope of a mountain and not in the tree cover?
That's what I'm wondering too. The only thing I can think of with my zero experience, it would be like, I wouldn't set up in tree cover if there was like a predator there, like a bear.
Mm-hmm.
Like, then I'd be like, yeah, screw this. We sleeping on the mountain unless you want to snuggle with a bear in his stomach. No.
I could see that, but they've been, setting up tent this whole time for their whole expedition. They're already out in the wilderness, so.
They are. And and the locals did call that mountain scarce, as in no prey or animals, so, it'd be interesting if there's a bear there.
Yeah, it would be. Because if there's a bear, that means that there's going to be other prey there.
So if there's nothing small, ecosystem logic brings that there shouldn't be any predators there.
Mm-hmm.
So then why did they set up on the slope?
Exactly. So Yuri does have a theory about why he did this. His theory is mainly that he didn't want to backtrack their progress that they had made. So on the slope, they were about a mile away from tree cover at this point.
Okay, that tracks.
Yeah, so I can understand that. But also, it's only a mile. You're only a mile.
Yeah. When I think about that part, you weigh the pros and the cons of cold as hell.
Yep.
Or walk 15 minutes back. Oop, they didn't hear that word. And 15 minutes is pretty legit. I can WALK a mile in 15 minutes.
Granted, with all the equipment that they had, a mile was probably a lot further than that. It probably took them a lot longer.
Okay, 30 minutes, true.
Yeah. And then, so, we're talking, Russia in the winter. At this time of year, it's easily 20 below zero in Fahrenheit at this point. So, with the winds, that's freezing. I don't even know how bad that would be.
Awful. It would be awful. But I'm also just wondering if and again, I have no experience here, so maybe there's an obvious answer and I just don't know it. But if you are that experienced as hikers, as a group, and Igor as the leader, if you know those temps, you know the terrain, or you've got it mapped out enough,
Yep.
My brain says you stop when you get to the tree line, and that is your camp. If you
why'd they keep going?
Yeah, why would you keep going? Why would you expend that energy when you need that energy to set up camp if it's 20 below?
Yeah.
Questions? Okay.
Yeah, so lots of weird things going on already. So the group of 9 were supposed to make contact on February 12th with Yuri Yudin on their progress. Well, he never got that update. No one was really concerned at this point just because, they're on this expedition. They could be delayed. They could be a couple days behind.
Bad weather or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So no one was very concerned. More time passes, and we are now at February 20th. And, family and friends are starting to get really worried about them. So they sent out a search and rescue team, which consisted of students and teachers from the university that most of them attended. And also the Army and police were involved in this as well. So they were out searching for them. And then on February 26th, they finally found their tent.
Or I was going to say just the tent.
Just the tent to start. But so I'm going to back up to February 1st. So sometime on February 1st, between them setting up their tent and then the next morning, something caused the hikers to abandon their tents very quickly because the tent was cut open from the inside.
That's what I was about to ask. I'm like, that seems bizarre that you would abandon your shelter.
Yeah.
Especially a portable shelter in that type of weather.
Yeah. And like, what caused them to leave all of their stuff behind and literally cut their way out of the tent? Yeah. Everything.
Like all their hiking materials, everything was left?
Their skis were left, most of their boots were left, like food, and like they were going. And as I keep talking here, you'll see just how much they left behind. Like they didn't have much on them.
So they cut their way out of the tent.
Mm-hmm. They cut their way out of their tent, and they left their belongings behind: shoes, equipment, skis. Like if you're trying to break away fast, I would take the skis. Like can get going pretty fast.
They left the boots and the skis. See, that's what
some of them had boots on. Some of them had. We'll get into that. Yeah, but they left a lot behind, so they were in a rush.
The only thing that I can think of that would make you rush like that without grabbing anything else is you're running for your life.
Exactly. Yeah, but what were they running from?
That is my question too. Oh, please don't be a Wendigo. I don't like those fuckers.
Oh, what?
Wendigo.
What's a Wendigo?
How do you not know what those are?
Are we talking Yeti or what are we... What's a Wendigo? Is it another word for Yeti?
Kinda. No, Yeti is a... Fuck me, why do I know this? Because I have a sister who loves Bigfoot and Mothman and all that stuff. Wendigos are... You want to... Maybe I will look those up over break and we'll get your reaction to it because it is so fucked. It is so fucked. Okay. There's no PG version of it. It's fucked.
Alright.
Gives me nightmares.
Oh gosh. Wish me luck. But so on February 20th, fast forward back to February 26th, they were tracking their footprints. Like all of the footprints just went in opposite directions. So they weren't like following each other.
They broke apart.
They broke apart. Most of them ran for the tree line. So they were tracking the footprints that led to the tree line that was about a mile from the campsite. Underneath a large tree, they found the remains of a small fire. And then around the fire, they found the bodies of Yuri Doroshenko and Gregory Kravchenko. I do want to note here that they were both without their shoes and in their underwear. Now, that is odd. There are a couple theories behind why they weren't wearing any clothes. This could be something that's called paradoxical undressing, which, do you know what that is?
Isn't that like when you have hypothermia, your brain tricks itself into thinking that you're very warm?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically, like, imagine, like, when you're outside and it's super cold and you're, like, the tips of your ears just start burning?
Yeah.
Now imagine that on your entire body.
Okay, so that part tracks that.
Yep, so it could be that, or another theory is, did other people come upon them after they died and undress them so they could put clothes on? Because they all died at different times.
Oh. Well, that's just giving more questions than answers. Okay.
Yeah.
Were the clothes found that they were wearing?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Because that would be where my brain goes.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember. I remember that there was something linking, but that one wasn't a part of where my brain was like, oh, let's keep going.
What the what?
Yeah. So then they discovered the rest of the group scattered in different points that spanned over 1,100 feet. They were presumed to be attempting to go, make their way back to the tent. The government initially ruled all these deaths hypothermia and, quote, under the influence of a compelling natural force, end quote. And the case was very quickly closed.
under the... Hold up, what is a compelling natural force?
Well, when I get in this, nothing natural about some of these. I mean, the hypothermia ones are...
Yeah, I can work with that part.
But the rest of them... All right, so now everything has been open. So, like, we can see autopsy reports, which I was going ham on.
She was telling me about those before.
There's a lot more that's open about this case now than there was. So, going into the autopsy reports. So, we're going to start with Rustin Slobodin. He was wearing clothes, so he had sweater, ski pants on, and then in his pocket he had 48 matchsticks. I love that they counted that, by the way. A pocket knife, a comb in a case, 2 pieces of string, a pencil, and a cotton sock.
Interesting. Also, further proof, men have deeper pockets than women. What the fuck?
Yeah, I wasn't going to include the pockets, but then I was talking about her and I was like, yeah, I was starting to take notes on the pockets, and I was like, well, am I going to do this for all of the 9? And she's like, yeah, why not? So I was like, okay.
It's kind of interesting what was merited to be important enough to have on them as they ran out of the tent.
Or that just happened to be in their pockets.
Or just happened. Even so, something that you keep on your person, that tells a lot about who you are.
Yes, that is true.
Especially if they didn't take it off even when they went to lay down. Because that tells me, like, keeping the matchsticks in his pocket as well as the knife was very important to, you said this was Rustin.
Mm-hmm.
Because Rustin probably knew that you always have to be prepared for something.
Yeah.
Hell, his knife could have been the one that cut the tent open.
It could be. And so his right foot had 4 layers of socks on, and then a felt boot. I don't know what I said. Boot. And then his left foot had all the socks missing the felt boot. So he only had 1 boot on.
Which means he either A, lost it while running, or B, he was in the middle of getting ready.
The tent. That one was in the tent.
So he was probably in the midst of getting ready to go to bed when whatever happened. Mm-hmm. Which, if he is, depends. Again, if we're assuming that he's a very prepared person with the 48 matchsticks and the knife, that tells me that he is logistical enough to be, like, smart and quick. So the fact that he didn't grab his boot when he was running out of there. Or use the knife to defend himself.
So he was found to have abrasions on his face. And then on the lower third of his backside of his right forearm, there are 2 parts of the epidermis, so skin, that is missing, and it's uneven edging around.
Oh, please don't tell me that means a bite.
Don't know. But, like, there were theories out there. I didn't write this down, but someone had said, like, in one of the trees that they saw, there was a whole bunch of branches that were, like, snapped and whatever, and some of them had skin on. They're linking it to maybe he fell and a hunk of skin
climbing up in a tree.
Yeah, why are you climbing up in a tree?
The only things I can think of, and again, not an expert, just a paranoid person. The only thing I can think of would be you're getting up there to get your position, or you're getting up there to hide.
Yeah. So another theory that I was seeing online was he climbing the tree to try to look back and see if there was anything out there near the tent. Like, is it safe to go back?
Yeah, he was definitely climbing a tree for a purpose, because that is not just like a leisurely climb in the summer. There was a good reason for him to be up there.
Exactly. He also had some grazed wounds to the soft tissues of his lower left shin that are dark red in color. So, could be from anything. It could be from branches, could be from, like, grazed wounds are generally, like, you're running through something and you just get marks.
I was going to say, not from falling out of the tree, because if it's his shin, depending on how he fell, but most of the time you fall back.
Yeah. He also had a skull fracture in the left temporal bone. This can cause hearing loss, vertigo, and issues with balance.
Which could have happened from the tree fall.
Or maybe something else. This actually wasn't deemed the cause of his death. The examiners believe that this could have occurred from him falling or something hard hitting him, like a rock hitting his head or something. Autopsy states, end quote, when this happened, it would have caused him to become stunned, allowing for rapid freezing. So the damage was caused during life, and the cause of death was deemed hypothermia.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it might have, skull fracture could have disoriented him, but that just sped up the process of him dying. Yuri Doroshenko and Gregory Kronovchenko, I put them together because we already talked about them. They were the two that were found at the fire. Both of them, cause of death was deemed hypothermia. Yuri had nothing in his pockets that the autopsy put in there. Gregory, his outside pocket had a coil of copper wire and a pink silk ribbon.
Okay, that's sad if that's a token from, like, a girlfriend or somebody.
I know. That's where my mind went to.
Aww.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what the coil was for. Maybe that's a hiking thing.
I'm sure it's a hiking thing. It's gotta be a hiking thing. Moving on to Igor Dyatlov, so our leader of this group. He was found with a fur jacket, a couple layers underneath, ski trousers, 2 layers of socks on both feet, and a 3rd layer on his left foot. In his pockets, in his chest pocket of one of his inner shirts, he had a package of streptocide with 4 tablets. And I looked it up because I was like, I've never heard of this.
I've never heard of it.
The only thing that I could find is it's something that promotes healing.
Interesting.
Which, I mean, makes sense if you're going on a dangerous hike that you would want something to promote healing.
True. So, Neosporin in the 50s. Got it.
Yeah. I didn't dive too deep in there because I was like, we gotta get recording. He also had some abrasions and bruising on his knees. And then as well as the left ankle on the outside, and then the backs of both ankles. He also had 3rd and 4th degree frostbite on his extremities. And then ultimately, his cause of death was also deemed hypothermia.
Okay.
We're getting all the hypothermia ones out of the way.
Oh, not all of them are hypothermia?
No. All right, so how did I say this? You're like, it's so pretty. Zinadia. This is
good as mine.
Klamagrova. She was found with 2 hats, outer sweater that had its left cuff torn off, ski pants, and 2 layers of socks. So, no boots for her. Right pocket of her pants had a brown comb with 2 broken teeth. And in her left pocket was a black shoestring. That's why I was like, some of these are random.
Very random.
Black shoestring. She had 4th degree frostbite on her fingers and had some abrasions on her back and skin in general that were caused by blunt objects, but no other injuries for her. So she was also deemed cause of death, hypothermia.
Blunt objects. Meaning she was whacked or she fell?
Your guess is as good as mine.
That's a major difference.
Especially when we get into our next ones here.
And real quick, was Zenadia, I hope I said her name right, was she found close to the tent?
I don't remember. I didn't write who was found where other than the 2 that were by the fire. I know you can figure that out. There's just... Do you see why I did a deep dive on these guys now?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's, again, I'm missing out on so many details, but I'm at like 8 pages now of information.
This is very interesting.
Yeah. You see why I was excited for this one?
Yes.
All right, so next one, Alexander Kolovatov. For his clothing, he had ski jacket with layers underneath, ski pants. He had 2 pairs of socks on, and the outer layers were partially burnt of his socks. Was he trying to stick his feet in the fire? Was he... Who knows?
I mean, Yeah, I can see that considering my very fashionable 7th grade jacket. Do you remember everyone had like it wasn't a crop jacket, but it was kind of crop puffy with the fur for the hood. Yeah, I sat against the glass on my grandma's fireplace, and then we're like, "What's that smell?" Oh yeah, polyurethane freaking melted all against that. Ugh. But you don't realize when you're so cold because I was freezing my butt off. So I sat next to the fire, and then I set my jacket on fire. I felt bad. Yeah. Fun fact: did you know burning that polyurethane material onto glass in front of a fireplace, it basically cements itself to the glass?
Yeah. So it didn't come off.
I don't know if my uncle got it off or if he just replaced the glass, but I felt real bad on that one. Yeah. So lesson learned: be careful. Fire is dangerous and hot.
Shocker. So continuing with Alexander's pockets, he had an inner shirt that had 2 breast pockets. So on the right pocket contained a letter. Couldn't find what it said was on it. And then a key to a lock. On the left side, he had a piece of brown paper and then a wrapping from a packet of codeine with soda. Codeine with soda.
Codeine with soda?
Bizarre things that you can get in the 50s, I guess.
Interesting.
And then in his pants, his right pocket had a pack of matches, and then his left had a handkerchief.
Okay. Huh. I'm sorry, I'm still just questioning. I'm questioning everything, obviously. Mm-hmm. But, like, we're not getting a lot of answers. More questions.
And there will be more questions.
Oh, good. Good.
So when they found him, some of his hair was missing in the front. He didn't have any eyebrows. Skin was missing from his eyes to eyebrows, exposing the facial bone.
Okay.
I can see you out of the corner of my eye just go, what?
When we say missing, are we saying gnawed off by animals, but there shouldn't be any animals on the slope? Are we saying it was burned off? Can it freeze off like that? No, not that quickly if they were found relatively quickly.
My thought for the skin might have been, so even though that they found them, they were like frozen solid, so they couldn't get them until the mountain started to thaw. So part of that could have been from being submerged underwater for so long. Your skin starts sloughing off.
So they were, okay, making sure I understand.
Yeah.
So they're on the mountain.
Yep.
They die.
Yeah.
They're found.
Yep.
In February.
Yep.
But they're too frozen and they aren't able to get them back down, so they have to leave the bodies, leave the crime scene until it starts thawing in the spring, in which at that point the bodies sink into the water because it's snow on the mountain thawing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, I get that, but like the CSI part of my brain is going, no, evidence go poof.
Yeah, but also this was the 50s.
True, and I suppose, you're limited in what you can do to get them out of there. It's not like you had ready access to helicopters for all this.
Yeah, no. And so, part of that could have been from in the water. Some of them were able to, their bodies were able to be taken right away because they weren't frozen solid. But that's my thought process behind there. I mean, I don't know. The soft tissue of his face was like a dirty gray color. The others so far, I know I haven't mentioned color, but they were all like bluish red. They were all described as being bluish red.
That sounds like fresher death as opposed to gray. Fresh death, is that a thing?
Well, yeah.
I don't think I'm going to snack on salami later.
That's, yeah. This is why I said let's get this one out in the early morning.
Yeah, good call.
There was also a wound that was behind his right ear that penetrated into the mastoid process.
Do we know what the wound was caused by?
No, we don't.
Really?
Uh-huh.
If it penetrates that much, my brain goes, you gotta be stabbed and or falling on something at least long and thin enough to do that.
So,
Ice pick. Sorry.
oh, there are so many ice pick things. Examiners believe that the cause of death was hypothermia, and the injury to his head occurred after he died.
Post-mortem? Bizarre.
Yeah.
Do they have any notes about if they think that puncture wound was made by a natural item or by tools?
Unknown.
How is that unknown?
Unknown. 50s. No. I don't know.
Good point. Not like I could do better, but...
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Yep. So now moving to Semen Alexander Zolotrava. He had on 2 hats, a scarf, ski mask, jacket with layers under, khaki trousers, black felt boots with leather soles, and 1 sock on the right foot and 2 on the left foot. For his pockets, his shirt pocket had a brush and a ball of yarn. And I'm assuming to start a fire?
Yeah.
The yarn to start a fire. In his pants, in his right pocket, he had an onion bulb. Coins of 3, 5, and 15 kopecks, which is, I'm assuming, is their currency.
Yeah.
And then in the back pocket, he had a rolled up newspaper. No idea
Insulation.
what the newspaper was.
No, the only reason I know insulation is because I read a book in 5th grade about, based on a true story, where a girl and a guy get stranded in a car, actually in Minnesota, or was it Canada? And they use newspaper and notebook paper, and they shove that in their jackets, and it's actually an insulation.
Huh.
That's a legitimate thing.
Interesting.
That's why I've always kept newspaper in my car.
This was just one newspaper, though, that was rolled up in a pocket.
My
So
theory's
maybe
out.
not insulation. If he had a bunch of them, I would say yes.
Unless he went through them.
Maybe.
Or they used them for fire.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Now, his facial skin was a gray-green color. His hair is noted to slide from the scalp, which is touched, which again could have been from the ice melting and them being submerged in water. We don't really know. He has soft tissue deficits on the right temporal areas to where it shows the temporal bone. Now, these are where it starts getting weird.
It's just getting weird?
His eyes are missing.
Say, what the?
His eyeballs are missing. They're not in his sockets.
Okay. You know, correct me if I'm wrong here, but getting an eyeball out, it's not easy.
Not something I want to think about either.
Not something I want to think about,
but you literally have to, like, pluck them out.
I was going to say, there's optic nerves and everything all the way back and muscles.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. What? Animals not going to go for that either.
Well, and even if they do, like, it's going to be like mush, and that's not the only thing they're going to go for.
Yeah.
So continuing on to his findings, he had multiple fractures on his right ribs, and there was hemorrhaging in the pleural cavity, so in between your lungs and your chest wall.
So he got hit hard.
Hit hard. They say that this was caused by a high-power impact to the chest. It could have been caused by a major fall, a lot of squeezing, or throwing. And the cause of death was deemed, quote, most likely from the hemorrhage.
I hate that I'm about to ask this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Were the eyes pre or post-mortem?
They didn't say that one. I think that one's kind of hard to determine. Or at least back
depending
then
on
was.
the condition of the body.
Yeah.
Because that would tell you a lot. If that is pre-mortem, that means either dude was tripping on the most insane drugs in the world, took him out himself, or you got a motherfucking psycho out there.
Mm-hmm. Going on to Nikolai. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name again. I can't do it. For clothes, he had 2 hats, a jacket with layers underneath, and then had 2 watches, pants, and then feet were partially covered by new felt boots. I don't know what they mean by partially covered, maybe not fully in them. Both feet have 1 layer of socks, but there are crumpled socks at the bottom of each boot Like, he's not wearing them. They're just there.
Hmm.
The jacket pocket, the right pocket had gray gloves, and the left there are a 10 and 20 and a 2 kopeck coins, 2 folded pieces of paper, and a comb. The pants pockets were found to have a white metal button in them, and then a metal chain from, it says, a wall clock, which makes no sense. Like, do you mean one of the 2 watches he was wearing, like a pocket watch? But it literally said a wall clock in the autopsy report.
Wall clock?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Questions? I still have... I can't get over the fact that they cut the tent and ran out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is something you gotta be doing in, like, extreme fear or panic.
Yeah.
But what caused it?
Mm-hmm. So his findings are even worse. These last couple are kind of bad. We should have done a warning at the beginning of this podcast.
Maybe we do an addendum clip. We'll do an addendum clip.
Yeah, we'll do that at the very end. So I remember how to, yeah.
But in case you're just tuning in at this part, trigger warning, this is about to be gross.
Yeah. If it wasn't already, it is now. So the finding for him, so the skin on the back of the body and limbs are gray-green color. His upper jaw has a deficit in the soft tissue. He has a depressed skull fracture in the right temporal area. There is a lot of indication of hemorrhaging from the right temple into the right temporal region, which is pretty big region for bleeding. And then when examining just the skull, they found a multi-splintered fracture on the right temporal lobe, and it diffused to reach the supraorbital region of the fontanelle bone. There was a secondary crack as well that was in the middle cranial fossa, which is kind of in the low side region. For those of you listening, I'm kind of using my hands to demonstrate, not doing a great job, but so the cause of death for him, examiner's opinion was that the death was a result of the closed skull fracture, followed by, quote, prolific amounts of bleeding. This was the result of a great force that could be caused by falling, hurling, and concussion.
More questions, less answers.
Mm-hmm. Ready to move on to the next?
Yeah, because I'm still just processing questions over here.
So next is Ludmila Dubanina. For clothes, we have a hat, a few layers of sweatshirts and shirts. Her pants were, quote, very torn and burnt in places. That's how it was written in the autopsy report. The left leg, so part of her leg and foot were covered with burned gray wool cloth from a jacket with its sleeves, as well as torn woolen socks. So very weird. Like, she didn't have boots on, so I think she was trying to do makeshift, like, I need something for my feet. She also has 2 layers of socks on her right foot. Sounds like, yeah.
Interesting. So now I'm coming back to, we've talked about a couple people having singeing or burning. And we had the first 2 boys that were found by a fire, but with no clothes.
Did they stumble upon them, grab what they could? So did she take some of their clothes to put on her feet, or?
I mean, yeah, but if she did, and you said they were all found within about 1,100 feet of the tent, which is, give or take, about a quarter of a mile away?
Minus the 2 at the fire.
How far away were they?
About a mile.
They were about a mile.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I have more questions of why didn't they go back to the tent? Yeah, why did they leave the tent? Like, everything seems to be decent enough. until they leave the tent and decide to camp on the slope. Can you get hallucinations from extreme hypothermia?
I'm sure you can. I'm sure, yeah.
Because when we mentioned, Yeti and Wendigo earlier, like if you are hallucinating from exhaustion beyond what I can probably understand, and I'm okay with that, plus the extreme temps, you're on a mountain, there's got to be some silence around you that's got to be eerie as fuck.
Yeah. So hypothermic patients, they can have dramatic decrease in mental status, which they can start hallucinating, they can become delirious, and then unresponsive. So they could have been seeing stuff that maybe wasn't there. But also what caused some of these injuries, because we're not even, I mean...
That's what I'm wondering, because my brain goes, so you got a group of people, and if you are cutting out of the tent, again, my brain only understands that as you are doing this because you are scared for your life.
Yeah.
So then leads to a couple options. A, you think that there is something outside the tent, and you think it's on the other side near the door. You're not going to the door. You don't want to wait for the door to open, whatever you need to do, so you get out. Or if one of the members in your group has snapped and has gone crazy and is attacking, and they are just being freakishly strong, because that can happen.
Well, personally, I don't think a person can do this, in my personal opinion, because some of these that we're going to get into, they're like, a human, I don't think a human could do these.
Okay, you've wrestled crackheads, so I'm going to take, not as a pastime, as a paramedic. She had to wrestle crackheads, and that's not a phrase, by the way. She literally had to tackle a few of them.
Yeah. So for her, she had nothing in her pockets. Her skin color is a yellowish brown.
Yellowish brown? What does that mean?
Yellowish brown.
Was she not? I'm thinking Russians, and Russians in my brain are pale folks. Is she a pale folk, or is she not?
We'll get into some theories in a little bit. There's a reason why I'm kind of throwing in the skin color. So from her autopsy report, I quoted this: the soft tissue in the area of the supraorbital ridges, on the bridges of her nose and the eye sockets and the left temporal zygomatic area are all absent, exposing the facial skull bones.
Sorry, real quick. All this skin is gone?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What?
Again, I don't know if this is from being in the water for so long or if something happened. I don't know. They didn't specify. The left temporal area has soft tissue damage, and at the bottom there's a section that has exposed skull as well. Again, for her eyeballs are missing. Again, with the eyeballs.
Oh, please don't tell me this is a fetishized, like they both had the same color eyes out of the group.
This is the one, to me, that's the most messed up person, in my personal opinion.
What?
So that's not even the weirdest one, in my opinion.
What the what?
So there is an absence of soft tissue of the upper lip on the right. Her teeth are intact. Tongue is absent. Her tongue is gone. It's gone. It's not in there. Uh-huh. Do you want me to make this worse for you? The rest of the autopsy, so they found blood in her lungs and stomach, which indicates that she was alive when her tongue was ripped out, or at least still breathing when her tongue was ripped out. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. So, couple quick questions here. Did they see anything indicating rip versus tear, cut, any of that?
The only thing that I found was it looked to be ripped out.
Okay, follow-up question. Is it humanly possible for one to rip out their own tongue?
I don't know, but they didn't find it. Like, along with the eyes. They didn't find the eyes. They didn't find the tongue.
Okay, so I am not someone who knows a lot about decaying. Yeah, but like, I don't feel like eyes and tongue are things that go to that nature.
Not that quickly, I would assume.
I was gonna say,
Like, eventually, yes, but
eventually, yes.
not that quickly.
But also, wasn't it, if I remember your timeline correctly, they were assuming that date of death is between about February 12th and
1st and 2nd.
February 1st and 2nd, sorry.
Yep.
So we're
But
assuming
all that ice would have preserved their bodies.
And their bodies were found at the end of February, correct?
Yep.
Do they have a notation about autopsy or like body reports when they were found versus when the bodies were recovered?
I was looking at the autopsy reports.
So recovered.
I didn't look at the recovery reports.
Because that would be where my question would be. Because if those things were missing when they were found frozen.
I know the tongue and the eyeballs were missing.
When she was found froze.
Yep. Because there's a picture of her that I haven't looked at, but some people are like, it looks like she's screaming frozen. Yeah.
I don't need to. Nope, I'm gonna pass on that one. Even the mental image is scarring enough.
Zeus is comforting you.
Thanks, baby. Thank you, honey. What the? Okay, so this is we're leaning towards foul play because what the? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Ready for the rest of the autopsy?
Yeah.
For her. So on the outside front surface of the middle thigh, there is diffuse bruising with deep skin hemorrhaging. And then there are several fractured ribs on the right side, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on both mid-clavicular and mid-axillary lines are broken. And then on the left side of the mid-clavicular line is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 is broken.
She had more broken than not.
Uh-huh. And then there was a diffuse hemorrhage from the rib fracture. And then her left ventricle, she basically had major hemorrhage in her heart. So from the left ventricle to the right ventricle, there was so much blood. So she had a massive hemorrhage in her heart as well.
Oh my god, this poor kid.
Yeah. So cause of death from the examiner, I'm quoting here, I think the cause of death was by massive hemorrhage into the right ventricle, so her heart, multiple bilateral rib fractures, meaning both sides, and internal bleeding into the thoracic cavity, which is your chest area. Continuing on, quoting again, damage was probably caused by an impact of great force, causing severe closed lethal trauma to the chest. The trauma was caused during life. Damage to the soft tissue of the head were found to be after she was deceased.
Wow. So it sounds like she was thrown or fell. What the fuck? I'm not eating the salami later. Like, it's just not happening. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
What?
So, if all of that wasn't confusing enough, some of the hikers' clothing had high levels of radiation on them.
Well, yeah, let's just take a major left turn here. Why not?
So, Yuri Doroshenko had the highest levels on him. You want to note, he had been part of a nuclear leak before years ago. He was the oldest one in the group, I believe. He had been an engineer for that company, so he was part of the cleanup team. So the clothing that he had worn that day could still be radioactive, but like, he's smart enough to know, like, throw it away, at least wash it, like, and it had been 2 years before this. So, like, not the high levels of radiation that they were seeing here. Also, this is not a frequent testing post-mortem. Why did they test for radiation?
That was going to be my question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's throw the tinfoil cap on real quick.
Oh, jeez.
My
Getting
brain.
into it.
It just like, did they stumble across a secret something they weren't supposed to on a mountain that's not supposed to be visited?
Oh, so I'm about to get into some theories here. First, I do also want to note Yuri, the one person to survive. He also stated that one of the hikers was an avid journalist and had come with a camera, and neither of those were recovered when they found them, or they were missing. Are they missing, or did people hide it? So now some theories. So the first theory, some people believe that an avalanche may have occurred.
Was there evidence of this?
Well, so not really. People say that, this would explain the sudden panic, fleeing their tent, like running out without boots on or anything because you want to avoid being buried. And, if the tent was partially buried, it would explain why they cut their way out.
Was the tent buried? No. Well, okay.
This is like, I started with this one because it's like the one, personally, I'm like, it's the least believable and least amount of evidence. People are like, this could explain some of the injuries, and I'm like, yeah, you got the rib fractures and stuff, sure, you got that. What about the eyes and the tongue?
Yeah, an avalanche doesn't pluck out your eyeballs.
Nope. Also, not all of them were buried in the snow, so you're not going to dig your way out if you get buried in an avalanche. Yeah, there weren't really signs of an avalanche. Also, the group took a picture before the incident, and there was a ski pole standing upright in the snow by their tent, and it was still in the same position when they found the camp. So,
avalanche is out.
Avalanche is out. People still argue it today, which in my opinion is really dumb. Like, you don't have... There's nothing to go off of.
No, other than it's a mountain.
Yeah.
And there's snow.
Also, members in the group died at different times. If it was an avalanche, it would have all been super similar.
Yeah. So what is the time frame for death, do they believe? Like days?
I don't know. Don't know. I just know that it wasn't at the same time. That's about all I'm aware of. There's a lot of information out here. You gotta kind of...
Yeah, I can see. I know it's a lot.
It is a lot. The next thing is... I don't even know how to pronounce this. Katabatic winds. They're very strong winds that carry high-density air from higher elevations down a slope, which they're down a slope. It can make some crazy noises, sounding like mimicking an avalanche sound. It can also lead to extreme wind chill.
Okay, so that has some plausibility.
They say it can explain the paradoxical undressing, but not the injuries.
No. And again, it's the tongue and the eyeballs.
Yep. So now this one is the one that you were getting at. Military involvement. So this is what Yuri, the survivor, thinks that happened. So the Soviet military may have been conducting secret tests in the area, and the hikers may have unintentionally witnessed something or encountered something that they weren't supposed to. There is no concrete evidence supporting that there was military involvement, but if it was, the deaths could have been handled more discreetly without leaving a scene, leaving the big scene with the having it unexplained. But again, like, why? What would have made such a dramatic killing if they stumbled upon something?
I'm not laughing at you, Ruby. It's just holding my foot and giving me kisses on my ankle.
Oh. I was wondering, I'm like, what did I say that made you laugh?
No. Well, it's just because I moved my foot and she put her paw on it and she dragged it back.
Oh.
That's what I'm like, oh. Thanks, Ruby. I know. Can you feel my hormones? They're raising, like going like, oh shit, fucky stuff's happening.
Probably. She's used to that.
Yeah. I'm leaning towards military. Because, okay, it's the 50s. There was one or two things going on in the world with the Soviets in the 50s.
Yeah. Some things that kind of helped that. Yuri Yudin was brought to identify some objects that they have recovered or items. So they found a fabric that they believe could have been from a soldier's uniform. Like, it didn't match any of their clothing. They're like, well, it could have matched the soldier's uniform at that time. Glasses as well as skis that didn't belong to anyone in the group were found as well. And Yuri also gave a testimony that essentially said that the investigation occurred 2 weeks before anyone discovered the camp. Why did they open an investigation if nothing was wrong? So the government had to have known that something happened prior to anybody reporting it. So are they covering something up?
Yeah, well, if you get your people out there quick enough, and you seem to be the one alerting and reporting it, doesn't make you seem as suspicious.
And maybe, I don't know, the people were already frozen, so they couldn't remove people, I guess. But also, if that's the case, why so violent?
Two theories. One, a lot of like the contusions and the fractures could have definitely been from a fall. Now, pushed or not is a different question. There's that. The additional violence, there are some mess up war stories of what some soldiers have done. And I hate to say that some have done worse, but some have.
Oh, they have.
So I can see that being a totally messed up psychopathic thing that someone would do.
Yeah, I guess it was the 50s.
It was the 50s. And the thing that I'm leaning towards that one, because the radiation, the objects that were not a part of the groups, plus the blood that was in the one young woman's stomach, indicating that her tongue was ripped out pre-mortem. Before she died.
Yep.
Yeah. So that to me is like, because if I know you can bite off your tongue, but if they're saying her tongue was ripped off,
like the whole tongue was gone, like from the base, it was gone.
That's not something that you can just
can't
do. No, that has to be an external force.
Yeah,
and I can't. I mean, if we want to throw out complete randoms, the only thing I could even maybe see as not being like someone else doing it to her is if she was climbing up something and she was like out of breath and she like accidentally got her tongue on some ice and then like she fell and it was so cold that her tongue just completely like froze to it.
Even with that though, wouldn't you think that they would have found her tongue?
Well,
maybe not.
Maybe. It depends on if there was any birds passing through. Yeah. But even, I'm not putting too much credence on that one because of all the other things that are with it.
Yeah.
But it is still weird that 2 members of the group had their eyeballs plucked up.
Mm-hmm. They saw something.
Or a psychopath is the one who was in charge of getting rid of those witnesses and then took some trophies. Because people take trophies. Fucking Nazis took trophies off of Jewish people in camps, alive or dead. Yeah. And not like, oh, they had a pretty brooch. No, like teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Fingers.
Disgusting.
People are nasty. They made lamps out of human skin. Found books out of it. No. Yeah, I'm sorry. Humans can be absolutely horrible. Mm-hmm. These poor kids. That's like what I can't get over. It's just how young they were, and like they obviously didn't set out to die like that.
Absolutely not. No, they just wanted to go and have fun. I have two more theories, and personally, they're my favorite.
Oh, let's hear. Yeah, sorry.
Aliens is the first one.
I should have known that was going to be one of them.
Well, so there is some behind that I've kind of left out of the story on purpose, so we could talk about it. So March 31st, there was a group of rescuers at that point that were out in this area. They were search volunteers who were looking for the remaining bodies that hadn't been found. They saw glowing, pulsating orbs in the sky. These orbs were also seen January and February, as well as March. So there are many, many, many statements from people who have all witnessed it. Even military people stating the same. Some people say they saw UFOs, but everybody that describes it says the exact same thing. So another group was on the opposite side of the mountain as our group of 9, and apparently, supposedly, on the night that the incident happened, there was the glowing, pulsating orbs in the sky. Supposedly. Again, all statements were the same. Pulsating orbs that were moving south to north. The head of the investigator also gave a statement saying that some of his people noticed that in the pine trees in the area, the tops of the trees were burnt.
When you say south to north, describe, is there any more information on the lights?
No, not that I went into great detail about. I took a lot of time on autopsies.
I'd be interested on the lights portion for my own reasons there, but there's actually... I haven't told you that story?
No?
Oh, well, okay.
Well, maybe, but not that I'm connecting at this moment.
Oh, well, in my own story, a couple years ago, back when I was living with my mom, I took Zeus out for the last WALK of the night, and I was just in the suburbs, just a little ways north of the Twin Cities, and I was at that first lamp post when you take a right,
yeah,
and I looked up, and there was white lights all across the horizon going south to north, and they were going... It was faster and smoother than a plane. It was the entire horizon that I could see. And it almost seemed like kids in a school line because they were just one behind the other, consistently going, but then one broke off to the side. And it's just like when a teacher steps out to make sure that all the kids from behind go ahead, like before they get on a school bus. That's exactly what that was, where that one light stayed off to the side, the other couple of little lights sped up, and then that one went behind, and then they were gone. Like, it was the strangest thing I've ever seen. I'm a very logical person. And, like, I have no explanation for it. Because at first I was like, okay, well, there's, you know, the airport in that suburb. It's a small airport, not commercial.
No.
But I'm like, no, the amount of lights that there were, the speed it was traveling at, just the consistency of the light. It wasn't like the planes that we normally would see. And there's too many of them to be a military exercise. Because it was all across the horizon that I could see. And it was the strangest thing. Because I was even like, well, maybe it's, you know, a spotlight or something.
Trying to rationalize.
No, I went through
way possible.
I went on Google where I'm like, what's going on in the area? Like, I literally was like checking if there's any events. I couldn't find anything. Like, you can ask Nina about it, because I came back and I was like, you are not going to believe what I just saw. And she's like, did you take a video? And I'm like, no, why didn't I? Like,
yeah, it doesn't occur to you until after. You're like, what is wrong with me?
Right? Because I was just like, I have no idea what I saw. And I've heard similar stories since then when watching documentaries where people describe the exact same thing.
Aliens do exist, guys.
I know. It was so bizarre, because I'm like, I have no way of logically rationalizing that one out, so it's just always kind of something that's been in the back of my head. But I'm like, oh, So when you started saying north to south, like
south to north.
Oh, that was south to
Yeah.
north. Well, these were south to north as well, actually. Yeah, because hold on, I have to think about it. When you turn right, you're facing north. Yeah, so these were south to north as well. I don't know of any bad shit that happened that night.
Well, maybe it wasn't close.
It wasn't close. I did make sure everything was locked and all the blinds were down.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, that night, I was like, oh, we're doing, like, ample lockdown. Thankfully, we already had the ADT security system, so I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to do, like, a full parameter lockdown tonight because what the actual hell was that?
Yeah.
So, okay, I have a little bit of theory for the aliens, okay?
Aliens. But yeah, the head of the head investigator, I can't talk, that statement about the tops of the pine trees being burnt. And that he also said that he was forced by the government to take anything out of his investigation that mentioned or alluded to anything regarding aliens. Do they know about the aliens? Are they friends with the aliens? Were they working with the aliens?
Well, wasn't something just released in the last 2 years where the U.S. government acknowledged the existence of aliens? In certain
I feel
incidents?
like that just randomly pops up every once in a while. Like, just a random, like,
Well, it
news
was around
article.
election time, of course.
Well, shocking.
Yeah, no, that's the burnt tops. That is weird. But then we also talked about the radioactivity.
Yeah.
And the lights. I mean, granted how logical of a person I am, which normally when I see something going down, I get out my phone to record it.
Mm-hmm.
Also being an insurance agent, like, video is proof.
Yep.
But I didn't at that time, so if these are all logical, well-experienced hikers, I can understand why they would cut the tent open and just, like, run like crazy.
Also, is the camera and journal missing because he wrote something about it?
Oh, I'm sure.
Or caught something.
Oh, for sure. You know, this is not the left or right turn that I was thinking we were going to have. I'm not disappointed by it, but
No.
like, huh. And here I was at the beginning of this episode thinking, oh, I know some about this. Apparently I don't.
Tip of the iceberg.
No kidding. Well, yeah, with plenty of ice in this one.
All right, so the next one is my favorite one. Yetis.
I was wondering if that was going to be one of them.
Yetis. Oh, of course it is. So some believe that the group encountered an unknown creature like a Yeti. This would cause panic. It would explain the abrupt flee from the tent. It could also account for the injuries, all of them.
Yeah.
Account for all of the injuries that the hiker sustained. The severe chest fractures, the internal injuries. Something that I didn't mention before, because I wanted it to be in the Yeti area, is that this group was writing a newspaper called the Evening Autorin, and their last header page of the newspaper was, quote, "From now on, we know the snowmen exist."
Well, yeah, that could explain why they wanted to go on an expedition in January, February, which I feel like is probably not the best time for expeditions, or that being it's the most dangerous, but radioactive. But tops of the trees burnt off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that part I can't explain with Yetis. But the Mansi, the natives, have something called a mink, M-E-N-K. They are super violent beasts, or this is what they say they are. They're super violent beasts that live in these Kulatsaka mountains. And just before this incident, that group believed that the mink killed a group of caribou that belonged to their tribe. And then the hikers went missing. There were also members of the Mansi that helped search for the 9 missing group. They reported to be extremely scared when they found what condition these people were in. They were just terrified. I mean, I would be terrified too. What's out there?
Regardless.
But they were more terrified than anyone else that was out there.
So, do we know about the state of the caribou that were killed? Were they missing eyeballs or tongues?
I didn't even think to look into that.
Because that would be my thing. Because I'm like looking for patterns, looking for an MO here.
Yeah. Don't know.
I can't believe that I'm leaning more towards military or aliens here. Sounds like I really am a tin hatter, but like...
You don't like my Yeti theory? Come on, Connie.
Well, unless the Menk is an alien.
Yeah.
I mean, it would explain several of the injuries.
Yeah. It would. Yeah, so I guess nowadays people can still do this hike, but they are strongly encouraged to not do it in groups of 9 because of these hikers. Superstitious.
Okay, at that point, if I'm going to do this hike, which I'm not, but if I were, I'm going with a group of like 90 people at least.
Yeah, like, let's go find the Yeti.
Yeah, I'd be like, let's get a couple of platoons worth of people here. And by the way, let's get some firearms and some knives. Hell, I'll take a spear. I don't know what's out there. If it's bad military or otherwise, I want something stabby that I can use to stab someone else. I don't want to be stabbed.
Which you said in the Zodiac Killer episode.
Oh yeah.
We had this exact same conversation.
I feel the need to clarify.
Yeah, there's also a book that I feel like would be really fascinating. It's called Dead Mountain, The Untold True Story of the Dyatlov Pass Incident. So that's now on my list to read. But my last question on here, what was your favorite theory, or do you have a theory yourself?
You know, I feel like because of the military starting an investigation before the friends and family officially requested one, that leads to me thinking like, okay, military to some degree is involved. But then the burnt tops of the trees, I don't have a good explanation for that. Aliens. And it depends how many trees. But even still, because my brain goes, well, one dude was climbing a tree. Was he trying to light a beacon for help, like the top of the tree on fire? But then the tree would have burned down. But if it's multiple trees, he probably didn't climb multiple trees to set fires.
It sounded like multiple trees. I don't know how many trees.
Which, I mean, also could be military, technically. But that does seem odd that they'd be burned instead of broken. Something. Yeah, true.
Testing a new weapon or something.
It was the 50s, and there is the radioactivity.
Yeah.
The only thing I feel like holds a decent amount of water, not that the other theories don't, but the military holds the most amount of water, theory-wise. Aliens are coming in there. Like, there's some malice. Like, none of this feels like it was just avalanche and hypothermia.
Oh, absolutely
not.
None
of it feels like that.
No.
No, I mean, if it wasn't, like, the eyeballs, the radioactivity, the burnt trees, the tongue, those are the things that I'm like, I can't accept that this is just a natural, bad, strong
even
block.
that last female, like, something hit her chest to the point that her heart literally just, I mean, it didn't explode, but, like,
burst,
such a severe hemorrhage that, like...
That takes a lot.
It takes a lot.
Because you don't even necessarily see that with airbags, do you, in car crashes? And that's a ton of force. Yeah. That is a massive amount of pressure.
Yeah.
But they didn't indicate necessarily additional bruising on her body that may have set a fall. Because the only thing I can think of is she would have had to have fallen from, like, the top really far down.
Now I'm regretting there was something about saying why it wouldn't have been a fall
For her?
for her. Because they were comparing it to someone who tried to off themselves by jumping out of a building, and they said that that didn't even happen to them.
Okay, so then we're back. I didn't even think the fall was a strong enough of a theory.
Mm-hmm. Just one big mind boggle.
It is, because like I'm running through all the potentials, like did she have cystic fibrosis or something that would make her more brittle? But if she was, it's very unlikely that she would be
able to go on that hike. Yeah.
Yeah. And if she was having a flare up, making more pain, or she was more brittle, declining health wise, she wouldn't have been able to go on the hike.
Yeah, all of the autopsy reports did say that they were all in like peak condition. Like they were all like they all had muscles. They were all very fit.
Which leads to more. And Yuri didn't mention anything about his other co-hikers being, ill or in pain, because if they were, they would have peeled off with Yuri at the last village.
Exactly.
So even that's out. I'm very curious. Like, obviously, this is a little bit of a left turn, but not really.
We're talking about aliens and the Yetis, so
Chaos Chronicles. let's keep going in the random. What I wonder, and I've always had this wonder, is when you die, obviously we don't know what happens next. Mm-hmm. But I'm very curious if there is a way to like actually know what happened to all these people. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't matter when you're on the other side.
I was thinking about that last night too. I'm like, am I one day gonna just figure out, after I die, just figure out all the answers to these mysteries?
Right? And that's what I'm wondering, because I'm like, I genuinely don't know. Yeah. I just feel bad for their families, because again, even 38, that is young. That is young to pass away.
And most of them were very horrific.
Yeah. Horrific, and between 20 and 24.
Most of them were hypothermia.
But the overall, how they died. Sorry, what is it? Manner of death versus cause of death. The manner of death being the extreme fear, the pain, that is horrific.
Something scared the shit out of them so bad that they got out of their safety, basically.
And that is interesting that there was another group on the other side of the mountain who noticed the lights, and there was other verified reports of the lights.
There were so many reports.
I'm leaning towards that being a part of it, just because, again, of my own experience. And you watching this don't know me from Jack, but, trust me, I'm not one to be like, ooh, the
No, neither of us are ones to settle on Yetis or aliens, but, I don't know. I think my mind just doesn't want to go there that a human being would do that to another human being. But that's just... Also, what did they use to have that much of a blunt force trauma that essentially makes your heart explode? Not explode, just... that's what I'm using to describe that, because it's so bad. Yeah,
the rupture. I know, and that's where I'm coming back to. Because that is such a great amount of force. If, again, not even... high impact car crashes with airbags are doing that. Mm-hmm. Which, high impact car crashes with airbags can fracture, break ribs. Mm-hmm. Totally happens, actually, more often than not. That's why you don't put a small child in the front seat, no matter how much they want to ride up there. Don't put them there. I have to say that to a lot of people, and they don't like that. Yeah. Anyway, but, if that can't do it,
there are things that can happen in high velocity crashes, but not to that extent that I've ever heard of. Broken ribs, yes, maybe some internal bleeding, like a spleen lack or something, but her spleen was how was her spleen fine?
I feel like this is about to be gross. I feel like the spleen is the gusher of the body where it just kind of just breaks.
It is.
It's the peach.
It's the one that's gonna go first. It's the most fragile one, in my opinion. From what I've seen is I saw a hockey player one time that got checked in the board so bad that it ended up being a spleen rupture. I thought like with how much blood was going on and how pale he was, I thought this guy, like, your heart has layers to it, and I thought that in between his layers, like, there was bleeding going on. So that can happen. But it ended up being the spleen, and there was just so much blood coming out. Like, he didn't look alive. Yeah. That was a bad call. I think he's fine. I don't know.
Yeah, but reason 998 why my kids will not play hockey.
Yeah, I stopped getting follow-ups for my calls, so can't tell you. Just because it got too depressing too fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, I mean, the spleen is usually the first one to go. And even still, with, like, high impact, you can have, like, pericarditis, which is the bleeding in the different layers of the lung. Yeah. Lung. Heart. Yeah. Why did I say lung? But, like, not that amount of bleeding in the heart. It just, in the heart, not the layers, in.
Yeah. And, you know, we're focusing so much on the facts of this right now, because that's what ultimately you have to work off of in any criminal investigation and any investigation whatsoever.
You have to go on the facts.
Go on the facts. And the facts are, it takes a massive amount of intentional force to do that type of damage to a human body.
Insane.
And the fact that there doesn't seem to be any natural explanation for how that damage occurred is what leads me to military alien malicious intent or something. Yes.
Military and aliens work together?
I mean, the more I learn about the world, the more I see what goes on, the less surprised I am by things. Disappointed, yes.
Yeah.
Surprised, no.
Yeah.
Oh my god. These poor families.
Yeah. We'll never know what happened to them unless, you know, they recover the camera one day and find something.
I feel like it's been recovered, and by recovered, I mean someone's got it and they ain't showing it.
Yeah. Also, like, there was another camera that was recovered, but they reported it to be water damaged. So they couldn't recover the photos, and everyone's like, there's no way.
Okay, it's been a hot minute since I've done anything with film, but depending on the type of film that they were using, not water damage wouldn't necessarily destroy it.
Well, this was the 50s, too.
It was the 50s, so using old film. Yeah. Light, yes, light exposure could do that. But
not really water.
No.
To my knowledge, at least. I could be wrong.
I could be, too. I have a very, 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 very surface knowledge of that.
Same. I'm not an expert.
Same.
In most things. Anything.
All of it just seems way too weird.
Yeah. I can't settle on one answer. That's why I'm sticking with Yeti, because I'm like, we're just gonna go with that one, in my head.
I know. I'm nervous on the Yeti part, too, because then it's like, is there naturally occurring predators of the human race that we don't acknowledge? I don't like not being top of food chain. I have a control issue that way. Oh.
Yeah.
That would be freaky too. But again, burnt tops of trees. But even so, how do you... Burnt tops of trees, someone on the other side of the mountains, military exercise is out. Because they would hear that. Or it could cause an avalanche. I do think the, what's it called? The Kubota winds?
Yeah.
I do think that is probable. That
could have easily happened.
That could have started everything, and maybe after they got out, that's when they saw some shit they weren't supposed to.
Yeah. Or maybe either, military was testing something which caused the tops of the trees to be charred and caused the radioactivity to be found. I don't know.
I don't either.
I told this story to my husband, very, very brief. Like, I did not go into details because I knew he wouldn't be super interested. But I was so excited. He's like, yeah, just give me the synopsis. So
shit's fucked. That's the synopsis.
So I did. And his response was, oh, so they don't know? And I was like, yeah, no one knows, like, what happened to them definitively. And he's like, well, what's the point of the story. I'm like, that's the point of the story.
The point is that we don't know.
Yeah.
Let's
talk about theories and let's get into it.
No, I don't. It's a certain type of folks, like our husbands, who are very straightforward. You know, they see a problem, they solve a problem.
Yep.
If it's not something they can control or solve, why worry about it?
Exactly.
And I'm like, that's fine, but my brain over here being the curious little...
I want to know!
I want to know! Plus, I also like hearing these stories, because then I can mentally go into my checklist of shit I'm never going to do and put, hike. There we go. In the winter.
Hike in Russia.
That one.
Yeah.
Didn't work well for Napoleon. Why would it work well for me? I am
Also,
far less ambitious than he was.
Maybe just hiking in a group of 9? Is there something with that?
I don't know.
Because they were doing great until Yuri left.
God damn it, Yuri. No, don't
Actually,
take the blame.
No.
Yuri, thank God for your sciatica.
Yeah, no, he got lucky, because if it wasn't for that, he'd probably be with them.
Yeah.
And we'd be worrying about groups of 10.
That's... I can't. To each their own, but like... What the hell? No.
I mean, I like hiking, don't get me wrong. I like skiing. That is an absurd amount that I would never want to go.
No.
Like, in the US, we have the American Birkie, and like, I've done the first half and the second half, and I've never done them together, because it's super long, and I'm like, I just don't want to.
No.
And like, I've gone on long hikes, but why would I want to go that far? I don't have a desire to go that far. Also, I don't want to hike and then have to like carry like tent equipment and stuff like that, and all my food with me and water, and I want to hike and then come back so I can shower, eat food, and go to sleep.
Yep.
In my bed.
Yeah, no. Props to everyone who does want to do that, like, totally for you. But that being said, maybe you can listen to this podcast or other podcasts or read about this group, because there's some lessons to take away.
Yeah, if a mountain is translated to don't go there, don't go there.
Please. That being said, whoever's responsible for the deaths of these 9 people, like, this is your fault. I don't know why this freaks me out so much, but it's because it's unsolved. That's having why. Answers.
Yep. Not knowing what's actually out there.
Control freak me does not do well with that. But that's fine. Well, this might be a good spot to wrap us up on.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was kind of a more unusual episode, but I think it was a lot of fun.
It was. If you guys would like to see more episodes like this, definitely let us know. Because I don't want to say it's fun, because it's morbid. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting for sure. Or if you have any suggestions on, stories that we should check out, let us know for sure. We would be happy to do some research and chat about it. Maybe we'll take turns back and forth who gets to do the research and then who gets to react.
Oh, this will be fun.
But yeah, so like we said in the beginning, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, and TikTok. The name for all of those are at Chaos Chronicles Podcast.
That's all. And that's Chaos Chronicles Podcast with an S on Chronicles.
Yes.
Perfect.
All right. So we will see you next time.
Awesome. Have a good one.